There is a door inside each of us. It does not open with logic, nor does it yield to force. It opens only to the soul. And the key that unlocks this inner door is not made of gold or iron, but of memory, emotion, and the deep, sacred imprint of the first face we ever knew. Before you had language, before you had a name for yourself, there was her gaze. In that gaze, you began to form the first outlines of who you are. You didn't learn who you were by looking inward. You learned it by being reflected. Her eyes told you whether the world was safe, whether your cries would be answered, whether your being was welcome. That look, loving or distant, warm or uncertain, became the silent architecture of your self-worth. She was your first mirror, not just physically, but emotionally and psychologically. Her reactions were the weather of your inner world. A smile from her could make you feel like the sun itself. A cold silence could freeze the most tender parts of your spirit. Long before you had the power to choose, you adapted to whatever she reflected back. You learned to shrink if her love was conditional. You learned to perform if her affection came only through achievement. You learned to hide your pain if it made her uncomfortable. These patterns don't disappear with time. They embed themselves deep in your unconscious. They become the voices you hear in your solitude, the standards you cannot live up to, the emotions you can't fully feel. You might even search for her gaze in others, replaying old dynamics, hoping this time the mirror will show you something different, something whole. But the healing doesn't come from finding a better mirror. It comes from recognizing that the original one, flawed or not, was never the final word. You can hold it in your hands now. You can see what it reflected and what it missed. You can grieve what wasn't mirrored and learn to reflect back to yourself what was never given. To reclaim yourself is to become your own mirror. To see yourself with eyes that neither exaggerate nor diminish. Eyes that don't flinch from your pain, your complexity, your need to be seen without distortion. Because before the world ever named you, her gaze began the story, and it is up to you to continue it with clarity, compassion, and truth. Before you ever opened your eyes to the outer world, you lived in her. Not beside her, not near her, but inside her. Your first experience of existence was not separate from her body, her breath, her heartbeat. You floated in a universe that responded not with language, but with sensation, with rhythm, with presence. She was your atmosphere, your horizon, your everything. Long before you knew there was such a thing as another. She was your whole world. Even after birth, the boundary between you and her was not clear. Her arms were the landscape, her voice was the sky, her scent, her warmth, the beat of her chest. These were not just comforts, they were truth. The nervous system learned her before it learned the alphabet. The body trusted her before it trusted words. If she held you with steadiness, your being learned that the world holds. If she disappeared, physically or emotionally, your foundation formed around absence. And so, though you grow and the outer world expands, that first world remains alive in the hidden parts of you. It lingers not in conscious memory, but in mood, in instinct, in the silent expectations you carry. You might find it in your longing for home, even when you stand inside your own. You might feel it in the anxiety that arises when closeness becomes too much, or when distance feels like death. Because it's not just her you are reacting to, it's the memory of the world she once was. Every time you love, every time you fear, every time you reach for something deeper and can't explain why, it is that first world echoing through the corridors of your being. She may no longer be the sun and moon of your daily life, but the emotional gravity she once held continues to shape your orbit. To heal is not to forget that world, nor to be trapped by it. It is to return as a conscious visitor, to feel what the child could not name, to hold what the infant could not process, to separate what was her from what is truly yours. Only then can you build a new inner world, one that honors the past but is not imprisoned by it. You do not live inside her anymore, but she lives inside you. Within the depths of your psyche, there lives not only the memory of your mother, but the internal image you unconsciously built of her, layered with your hopes, your wounds, your unmet needs, and your defenses. This inner mother is not a perfect replica of the real woman, but a psychic figure, a composite of your early experiences, filtered through the vulnerable lens of a child trying to survive, to be loved, to belong. And if your real mother was absent, unpredictable, overly critical, emotionally enmeshed, or simply overwhelmed by her own unhealed pain, that inner figure carries the weight of those distortions. She may live in your thoughts as a voice of judgment, whispering that you're never enough. She may show up in your relationships as a deep fear of abandonment or a compulsive need to please. She may keep you in cycles of guilt, shame, or perfectionism, driven not by present realities, but by an unconscious attempt to finally win the love or approval you longed for in childhood. The wounded mother within you is not evil. She is not your enemy. She is a scar on your soul shaped by something sacred that went missing. To deny her is to remain enslaved by her. You cannot outrun the inner mother by cutting her out or silencing her. You must face her, you must listen, not to obey but to understand. Perhaps she appears in your dreams, sometimes as a storm, a cold house, a weeping figure, or a voice you cannot silence. Perhaps she lives in your body, as tightness in your chest, chronic fatigue, or a hunger that no food can satisfy. She is the part of you that still aches for what was never given, still clings to what was once withheld. To acknowledge her is to turn toward the part of you that still stands in the emotional nursery of your life, waiting for someone to come and pick you up. It is to grieve, not just the pain you endured, but the love you missed. This grief is sacred. It clears the space for something new to grow. When you stop pretending that you were untouched, when you stop minimizing the impact of what you did not receive, then something remarkable begins to happen. The wounded inner mother, once seen, begins to soften. She no longer needs to control your life through fear and survival. You begin to mother yourself, consciously, gently, fiercely. You begin to reparent the parts of you that were left behind. This is not an act of blame. It is an act of liberation. It is the moment you realize you are no longer a helpless child. You are the one who can now offer what was missing. You are the one who can hold the broken, forgotten parts and speak to them with kindness. The wounded mother within you is not there to be hated or hidden. She is the map. She points to the places that need your love the most. And when you honor her, when you understand her pain without letting it define you, you step into a power that no longer waits to be chosen. You become the nurturer you always needed, and in doing so, you become whole. Your mother is where your life began, but she is not where it ends. She is the womb, the first place you were held, nourished, and protected. But she is also the threshold, the first boundary you were meant to cross. She brought you into life, but she was never meant to keep you inside hers forever. Her body formed your beginning, but her role was always a paradox, to carry you close and then let you go. Some remain trapped at this threshold, neither fully in the past nor truly in their own life. They live in unconscious loyalty, bound to the emotional world of their mother. They hesitate to step beyond her patterns, fearing that growth would mean betrayal. Others rebel blindly, pushing her away in anger, trying to define themselves only in opposition. But rebellion is not freedom. It is still reaction, and the soul seeks something deeper than either fusion or rejection. It seeks integration. To mature is to step across the threshold she represents, not to leave her behind with resentment or superiority, but to honor what she gave, while also releasing what she could not. She may have been strong or fragile, nurturing or neglectful, present or broken. Whatever she was your beginning, but she is not your limit. Her story is the soil, not the shape, of your becoming. Crossing the threshold means recognizing that she could not give you everything, not because she failed, but because no mother can complete the soul. Some parts of you she awakened, others she could never reach. And those untouched parts now wait for you to bring them to life. You must walk beyond her emotional inheritance. You must say, gently but firmly, I bless what you gave, and I release what you could not. To do this is to step into your own authority. Not by destroying the mother within you, but by transforming your relationship with her. The threshold becomes sacred when you cross it with consciousness. You no longer see her as all powerful or all failing, but as human, complex, imperfect, shaped by wounds of her own. And here, the deepest transformation begins. You stop searching for the perfect mother out there. You stop asking the past to give you something it no longer can. You begin to mother yourself, not as an imitation, but as a new creation. You offer yourself the care, the structure, the freedom she may not have been able to provide. You build a bridge between the old world and the new. Your mother was the vessel, but you are the voyager. She opened the gate to life, but it is you who must walk through it, not as a child begging to be held, but as a soul ready to become. The womb gave you life, the threshold gives you choice, and both are sacred. She is not just your mother. She is something far older, deeper, and more vast than any single human story can contain. The woman who raised you, whether she was kind or cruel, present or absent, is only one expression of a force that lives in every psyche, every culture, every myth. She is not just the personal figure in your life. She is the archetype of the mother itself, which moves beneath the surface of consciousness like a subterranean river, shaping dreams, behaviors, longings, and fears. This archetypal mother is more than biology. She is the primal matrix of life and death, creation and destruction, nourishment and suffocation. She is the goddess and the void. She is the earth that feeds, and the cave that traps. In myth, she appears as the nurturing Virgin Mary and the devouring Kali, as Demeter who gives life, and as Hecate who guards the threshold of death. She shows herself as the protective lioness and the drowning ocean. You do not escape her by forgetting your personal mother. You only meet her in more symbolic forms. In relationships, in addiction, in the voice that tells you you're not enough, in the dreams of being swallowed, smothered, or cradled. This deeper mother lives in you, regardless of gender. She may emerge as your impulse to care for others or your fear of being engulfed. She may arise as a creative force that births ideas, or a chaotic storm that threatens to undo what you've built. When unacknowledged, she can possess you, demanding worship, manifesting as perfectionism, codependence, or a compulsive need to be needed. She can also appear as resistance to softness, a rejection of vulnerability, or a mistrust of all things feminine, especially in yourself. To understand her as archetypal is to step beyond blame. It is to realize that your personal experiences with your mother are rooted in something transpersonal, something that has played out in every era, every household, every psyche. You are not alone in your struggle. You are not cursed. You are participating in one of the deepest dramas of the human soul. How to separate from the mother without losing your connection to life. How to embrace her power without being consumed by it. Integration begins when you see her in full, not just as the woman who raised you, but as the living symbol she represents. You learn to hold her dual nature, the comfort and the terror, the giver and the taker, the shelter and the storm. You stop expecting her to be perfect, and you stop punishing yourself for still needing her. You make peace with her contradictions within you, and then, something ancient shifts. You no longer relate to the mother only as a child. You begin to embody her in your own way. You birth your own meaning. You tend your inner life. You nurture others from a place of depth, not compulsion. You become the mother, not in role but in essence, the one who contains, protects, creates, and transforms. To recognize her as archetypal is to bow to the mystery she holds. It is to remember that she is not behind you. She is beneath you, within you, around you, waiting not to control, but to be met with reverence and brought into consciousness. When you can hold her without being held captive, you have stepped into your own myth, and there true power begins.